Hi, Danny. Can you hear and see us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and hey, we're streaming tonight.
Oh, yay.
Got everything set up the way it should work, so
I'm sure it'll crash on us.
hopefully not.
Figure out how to make this. There we go. Okay.
And this is Brad.
Yes.
Brad Stewart. This is Danny Schreiber.
Danny, how you doing?
Hello. Nice
Danny,
to
are you
meet
the vice chair or the chair now?
Vice Chair.
Vice chair. He used to be the chair.
Yep.
But
I got demoted.
HRB for how long now?
At least, well, this is my third term. So was that 6 years? I don't remember. Been a little while.
And you have a historic property in West Linn too?
I do. Yep. We live in the historic district.
Do you have a historic property?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm the only one on the board that does live in the historic home. Unless I've been corrected. And I'm also on the West Linn Historical Society too, and a few other historic committees too. So.
Do you know who was involved in doing that? They're doing a historic, researching historic homes down at the library. I don't know if it was West Linn Historical Society.
My Beth runs the historic home thingy, so maybe I haven't heard. What were they doing? Was there a project or something that I can display?
It's just a little presentation on the 12th. And I was like, wait a minute, we're doing the same thing. So it was, I don't know. It was just.
It was a gentleman who gave the presentation. I can't remember his name. Okay, yeah. Hard to say.
I didn't hear about it,
how
but
well attended it was or anything like that.
it seems somewhat redundant for us to be doing it and for the library to be doing it, but okay.
Right, and
Yeah.
it's just that it just happened. I mean, the library is a programming entity, and so is Parks and Rec, and planning doesn't usually do public programming.
So there, yeah, we didn't quite coordinate. Oops.
So that yeah. So I just don't think there's I don't know. The library wouldn't necessarily check in to see if we're doing something, but.
There you go.
Good, thanks. Here's.
Yeah.
What's your name? All right, well, we need
We have a few more people.
need at least one more person and our consultant to come on board.
John,
Yes.
these are papers that we need to do since that training.
Oh, thank you.
session in
Yes.
August.
I will scan these.
Oh, you can have.
Sure. Oh, okay. Well, I thought maybe share for the group.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And it's the bulk of the paperwork is like an example historic review for a project in Nashville and a copy of their bylaws.
Nice.
And at the end of all the deliberations, she said, we passed it, So there are all these technicalities where it wouldn't have been passed, even though it's a nice project. But,
Yeah.
They decided it contributed to the historic district in a positive way.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that.
Yeah.
I was bummed to miss that. I think I was out of town today on vacation.
I appreciate it.
Oh.
I got a lot out of it.
August 11th. This is Nashville.
It was a seminar in Oregon City, and it had 3 people from CAM, which is sort of a historic preservation board mentoring program. And 1 person was from North Carolina, 1 was from Nashville, and 1 was from Denver.
Oh, nice.
So they covered
Strong.
Yeah.
Historic.
Yeah, I was in Nashville once ago.
uh,
I think they do a really nice job.
I like that. You know.
Oh, we have our consultant, Kristen, with us. Hi, Kristen.
Hi. James shows up so we can meet him.
and
Yeah.
compliment him on his gin. So,
As soon as our chair arrives, we can
makes
start the
gin.
meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, he owns the Falls Distilling. So if you're in the gym, you might try that. So,
is that like sold in stores or
every
moonshine?
OLCC store?
Really?
Yeah,
That's James Manning?
James Manning, yeah.
What's the name of the gin?
The Falls, Distilling. They have different names, but that's the name of the distillery.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we're in Oregon City.
Mm.
So John Steele accepted.
On steel.
Is front door unlocked?
It was just a few minutes
Okay,
ago when I walked in,
yeah.
yes.
There's also a council meeting upstairs, so.
Oh, hopefully nobody went up there.
Well, I think they would probably know they're in the wrong spot.
James up there.
Yeah.
Run the meeting.
Yeah.
Danny, did you get a chance to read the, draft nomination?
Oh, no, I did not. I
Oh.
should have, I didn't. I was bad.
It was like 60 pages.
Yeah,
It was,
Kristen wrote it.
it was pretty fascinating.
Wow.
I learned quite a bit about Westland history down there. It was, I really enjoyed the background. So
Yeah.
it was good. And yeah, the sort of regional context of Dr. McLean's work. So I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting how he started the, prepaid medical plans for the mill workers.
Yeah.
Because they weren't able to get, and that was first considered to be illegal in a monopoly and antitrust, was brought against it.
Huh.
And now that's the way we do it,
It's
right?
like a predecessor to health insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. I did not realize it was 60 pages. I must have gotten distracted about 5 or 10
Well,
pages.
there's a lot of things of sort of exhibits, so
Okay. so
photographs and.
Yeah.
I need to go back and take a.
So,
look.
yeah,
I need to look at it more.
Yeah, there's
I
actually some rest of the copies over there. So,
Oh, there were copies?
yeah, sir.
I was gonna print it out.
Yeah, no, it's, if you guys ever want paper copies, we can print them off for you. To pick up either at the meeting or ahead of time. Yeah, because actually it's 26 pages of text. And then
So I am not seeing that Danny, John Steele said he would.
I run by that house all. Curious about it.
I might go, make some phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
Whenever I'm there,
I'll
it's
be right
just
back.
foggy.
Yeah, it's heavily wooded.
Yeah,
It's a cool little.
yeah.
Not so little though.
Yeah,
By Westland standards, it's not,
it's probably it's like an acre.
It's 2 acres.
Is it that big?
Is it, Kristen, how big is the site?
Just look through this. Pages here, it probably tells me.
Uh-oh, we don't have your
just under 2.5 acres.
Oh, so it is big.
I saw.
I can't
Is this
hear.
gonna have that, like they're doing all that work on the bridge?
Mhm.
It's just right
Hmm.
next door.
Let's see.
So interesting.
It's nice to imagine what it would have looked like before there was any.
Can't hear you. Do you do the down arrow on your mute? Can you hear us? Okay, can you hear us now?
Foundation.
Danny, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. And Kristen? Do you want to go out and come in again? Sometimes that helps. Okay. Clear your browser. Did you go on? Oh. So. Switch audio. There's James. Hi, James. Can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself?
There's John.
John, can you unmute yourself? We all need to do a round of test mics.
Hello?
Okay, we got John still.
That's me.
And James Manning, can we test your mic? Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can you take, can you press your down arrow by your mute and select a microphone? Danny, did you do a Zoom meeting recently?
I have, yeah.
Okay, did you clear your browser?
You mean John?
Oh, I mean, James, yeah.
James? Yeah, James.
Yeah, James. Kristen, can we hear you?
Yeah, here's the test. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Hey,
Oh.
James,
Magic.
to go out and come back into the meeting because we can't hear you.
That's what I had to do. Who knows why?
Hear us either.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Once he comes back, we can call the meeting to order. He can call the meeting to order as soon as he comes back.
I think he's having a hard time coming in as a analyst. So,
Oh, he is?
well, he did when I spoke to him on the phone. So.
Um,
I think that storm was a month ago. Feels much longer.
Remember?
It's my first. I'll leave.
I just sent him another link, but
A happy day for- So you have to switch it. Okay.
So far. So.
James, let's hear you again right now.
Can you hear us, James? Okay, cool.
We see if maybe he has a headset you could try.
And you're, And your microphone is selected?
If you hit the down arrow,
What's that?
That's his microphone.
Oh, that's your microphone? Yeah.
Good sign language.
okay, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to, I don't know how, I can't,
You call it?
do you want to
Is there a
call?
phone number you can call in on?
Yeah, but it should be in the meeting invite that I just sent you.
It's interesting, like you just have somebody pull a cell.
Yeah. It's- You know what this number is? 6019. I could just call them. Let's see.
Do you know his number?
I have it on my desktop, so I'll run grab that. You told David we're about to call him?
Historic preservation.
James, we're gonna try and call you on our phone here.
Remember you saying you didn't stop.
So I do wanna tell you that we are streaming right
Thank you for the work. We'll not discuss
Personal matter.
personal.
Yeah.
Details of our lives.
now. Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder.
Okay. Okay.
Are you getting that phone call, James? Okay,
Hey, James, good job.
all right.
That's weird, but there's no, microphone. I haven't, figure out what we want.
Yeah.
Weird one where it doesn't.
Oh,
Okay, do you want to, start the meeting, James?
Yeah. All right, so let's call the meeting to order and we'll call.
Okay, James Manning,
Present.
Danny Schreiber,
Present.
Dan Salty is absent. Michael Fuller does not appear to be present. Kirsten Solberg,
Present.
Brad Stewart,
Present.
and John Steele.
Present.
Okay, time out. James, we're getting two audio feeds from you, so is your computer on mute right now? On the,
Hold on 1 second.
Okay. Perfect, okay. We still have the echo.
yeah, we have the echo because there's two audio feeds coming from James.
The volume is down on the computer, so we shouldn't have an echo. Are you guys getting an echo when I speak?
Not when you speak, but when we speak.
I think you fixed it.
Actually, you fixed it.
Okay, all right,
No, we're good.
okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
All right, so the second item on the list is public comment related to items not on the agenda.
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, thank you. So approval of draft meeting notes from January 16, 2024.
I move to approve the January 16th, 2024 Historic Review Board meeting minutes.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, then the presentation and discussion of draft McLean House nomination to the National Register of Historic Places.
Yes, so with us tonight, we have Kristen Miner. She has been hired to sort of prepare the National Register nomination for the McLean House. And so we're very lucky to have her again, so on this project. So the nomination of the McLean House to the National Register would expand the list of properties in Westland already on the National Register. So since not everyone is familiar with the list, I'll just go over the other properties really fast. The most recent nomination was Historic City Hall. That was successfully added to the register, thanks to Kristen and many others who contributed. There's also the Arch Bridge, the Army Corps of Engineer locks, the Willamette Historic District, which the HRB deals with quite a bit, and the Nicholas O. Walden and the Luthwaite Moffat houses as well are also on the National Register. So I'll let Kristen sort of go into the details of this, but just as an upfront clarification, the nomination is just for the structure itself and is not for the archaeological resources on the site. And that also the house is already protected as is already protected as a locally designated structure, and its eligibility for listing on the National Register, which brings its own sets of obligations and protections. But and before that, I also just want to thank Linn Schroeder here as well for also working with Kristen and really getting this project going. So, anyways, I'll turn it over to Kristen and let her sort of introduce the house and process and everything. So, thank you.
Great. Well, I hope everyone can hear me okay. Okay, I'm seeing nods. That's great. I do really want to thank the board and the city of West Linn for hiring me to do this National Register nomination. As you mentioned, it's the second one that I've done for you, and I always really enjoy sort of digging in, and this nomination in particular, I really learned a lot about healthcare and about Dr. McLean and his significance to the local, local history. So I think, that the house has certainly been in front of you many times because it has been city owned and city run successfully, but I haven't really seen too much about the significance of Dr. McLean and the sort of area of health and medicine that I think is super interesting and important. And so I hope this nomination will really foster an appreciation of local history by McLean House visitors, as well as just, everyone in the West Linn community. So let me see, before I get into the nomination, I did want to say just a little bit about the process and the schedule for getting a National Register nomination approved. There is there's a long period of time during which the preparer is doing research and writing, and that can vary, of course, depending on how long, just how much time is allowed to do that. And I feel like in this case, I really dove in sort of right around Christmas, and it's been about the right amount of time for me to really feel like this is 100% draft, and it's pretty thoroughly researched. So I hope you agree. At this point, it will be given to the State Historic Preservation Office, the SHPO, on March 1st. And that date is important because there's only 3 times a year that the state board, we call it the SACP, but it's the State Advisory Committee for Historic Preservation. I had to count that out on my fingers. And they meet 3 times a year. So about 3 months ahead of their, their 3 meetings, the SHPO requests that you have a final draft to them. And so when I turn this in March, I'm hopefully holding my place for the SACP, the state board, to hear the nomination in June. So mid-June, if all goes well, we will expect to be reviewed by this board, and they meet in different places around the state. It depends on, what nominations they get from which jurisdictions. But I was actually just there in Salem. They met in Salem, which was really, really great because that's very close, on the I-5 corridor. I really appreciate that, as opposed to having to go out to Bend or something, but that does happen. And so the SACP will review the nomination, and they will decide if it's ready to send on to the National Register. There can be several ways that they can do that. One, they can say, yes, it needs just, these few tiny edits, so it can be sent off in, a month or so. Or they can say, it needs a little bit of reworking, let's take 90 days and then send it on to the feds. It's pretty typical that they have a fair, a small amount of edits, and that's what I'm hoping for in this case. So once they say, yes, this is ready to send on, the SHPO will then work with the preparer, get those little edits cleaned up, and send it on. And then once the National Register receives it, they have 45 days to review and approve. So adding up all those time periods, the earliest we could get this resource listed is probably October. And it could take just a little bit more time if the SHPO or the SACP tells me that, there's more edits to be done than can, be done in just a week or 2. So we will see, but that is kind of the process. It would be great if this board could send their comments to the SACP in preparation for that June meeting. And I'm sure you've done that before. Just comment on whether you think the resource is deserving of listing on the National Register, if there's anything that could make that case better in the nomination, and just send that along to the SACP. They always very much appreciate getting those comments from the local jurisdiction, and they do really listen. So any questions about the schedule? No. Okay, great. Maybe we could talk just a little bit also before I get into the nitty-gritty about what it means to be on the National Register. And I might ask for a little bit of help because I don't know the local code as well as you do, but I can certainly talk about kind of the benefits and restrictions that come with any nomination statewide. Excuse me. When a property is on the National Register statewide, that means it does have protections in terms of being either relocated or demolished. That doesn't necessarily mean that a property can't be demolished if it's on the National Register, but if the property owner asks for it to be demolished, there has to be a pretty high bar met of, sort of better public good. And so that, as you can imagine, is a high bar to meet. And anybody requesting that would have to have a public meeting. There's going to be a land use procedure that the city of West Linn would manage and a public hearing. And it's questionable whether a property could meet that bar. I mean, I'm sure there is some scenario under which that could happen. But for the most part, National Register properties are protected from demolition because it's hard to meet the bar as to why it should be demolished. There are other benefits that come with National Register, and so for I think it's the Parks Bureau, right, in West Linn that is technically owning this property. It is eligible for certain grants. It's eligible for tax credits, although if West Linn, if the Parks Bureau doesn't pay taxes, then those benefits aren't as helpful. But there are certainly SHPO grants. Those are competitive grants with other communities, but still, they are available to National Register properties. And then there are private grants as well that you can apply for. And some of those I know are like the Kinsman Grant and Meyer Memorial Trust. There's a few of them out there. So trying to think if there are any other. Oh, sometimes there's building code leniency that could apply. So for instance, if a property is historic and it doesn't exactly meet, say, ADA standards, you can get leniency on the code because it is a designated historic structure. Okay, so I think that's about all I can think of off the top of my head for benefits, restrictions that come with National Register listing. Local jurisdictions, of course, have the ability to require more in terms of what a property can and can't do. And I know that West Linn is one of those jurisdictions that actually requires a review for changes to the property. Maybe you could talk just a little bit about what that entails, and would now be a good time to do that, or do you want to wait to talk about that?
We can't hear your discussion in there. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't hear either. Thank you for doing that. I wasn't.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that. Sorry about that. So the house is locally listed as a historic resource. So it's subject to all the same protections as are extended to the other historic buildings of the city. And so any major change would go through Class 2 historic design review, which the board considers from time to time. So, it's also protected from demolition as well. And so going from memory, I believe the structure would have to be delisted before demolition. I forget the exact procedure, but there are there's a bar to reach that has to be met in order to demolish the structure. And so I think there are parallel protections in place. So
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Well, then I will talk about the nomination a little bit. I don't really have a prepared slideshow or presentation for you. I feel like this is probably going to be kind of a conversation. So why don't I just start talking, and please just interrupt, ask questions, you know, wave your hand if I'm not seeing you. And, you know, let's just go ahead and talk this through. Let me start with the McLean House's sort of, you know, basic description. It was a house built in 1927 for Dr. McLean and his family, who were at the time living and working in Oregon City. Dr. McLean had hired a kind of a builder to construct the house for him. I haven't found any information about why he knew of this builder or what their relationship was, but it was called the Henderson Bankus Company, and they were builders of very high-end houses during the 1920s especially. They built quite a few in the Portland area and several down closer to West Linn, one in Milwaukee, and a couple of others I've been able to find. They really only designed a couple of houses that I was able to find. This one and then another one up in Portland. The houses, though, that they built, at least one of them is on the National Register. So high quality, nice details, a lot of wood, as was befitting the time in the 1920s. Now, the nomination lays out two significance arguments for the house. One of them is for its architecture, so that's under criterion C. And it makes the case that the house represented its period of time, and it did that through its style and its details, and also that the house possesses high artistic value. And so if you are looking at the National Register criteria under criterion C, it is often used to nominate houses that are architect designs. And it's very clear in the National Register that a house does not have to be architect designed in order to meet the architecture significance criteria. And so I am really trying to lay out the reasons why this house fit its site so well, why it's a good representation of the time period with the colonial revival style and the kind of English Tudor roof on it, and the way it was situated looking out over the river and within its residential lot, which both the McLeans kind of lovingly planted and tended to over the years. The other reason for its significance is under criterion A and under the theme of health and medicine. And the property is significant as the only remaining property in West Linn that's associated with the development of the Physicians Association of Clackamas County. And that was one of the first organizations in the United States that offered prepaid medical care. And I lay out an argument that it was primarily Dr. McLean. There were 3 doctors at the time in 1938 that formally launched the physician, I'm just going to call it the PAC, Physicians Association of Clackamas County, in 1938, but that Dr. McLean really is the one who was slapped with the lawsuit and represented the organization when that lawsuit came through in 1949 and 50. He was the one whose name appears on almost all of the correspondence in the years leading up to the launch of the PAC. And he was definitely the one who acted as its kind of most knowledgeable member. So even though there were 2 other men who did launch this organization with him, it's my argument that he is the most significant. Let's see, the other significance argument that we thought about making was for archaeology. And I found it very interesting that when there was a previous attempt to list this property on the National Register, they actually got as far as the, I believe, the state board, the SACP, and were told that they should come back and list the property for its archaeology because that was so important. And I do find that very interesting because that's not really how the National Register works. The National Register is supposed to be a pathway through any single significance argument. You don't have to have, more than one. And if they had made, I think, a stronger significance argument, say, for its architecture, it probably would be on the National Register today. But it does lead us back to how important the archaeology of the site is. And I hope that there will not be any pushback. Both the SHPO and the SACP certainly understand that there is a lot of work that goes into establishing an archaeological boundary and establishing, those surveys that have to be done to really make a case for archaeological significance. And so I'm hoping that when we get to the SACP, perhaps the city of West Linn might be willing to even just say a few words if that comes up under their questioning, and just say, as I tried to put in the nomination, that is something that the city will be talking about in the future. So there is really exciting archaeological, connections to the site. And I laid it out a little bit, but part of it is the sort of tribal history. So the prehistory of the site, and then there is the very early settler history with Hugh Burns, his cabin, and the site of potentially his first ferry landing. So all of that is really, sort of tantalizing. Did your lights just go out?
Yeah.
That's great.
Motion detected.
Yeah, gotta keep moving. Don't fall asleep, please. So anyway, we're going with the 2 significance arguments. Let me see. I will just very briefly go through the the things that I called out in the nomination for character defining features. And this is a really important list for the local government, because those are the things that you really look for in a nomination to tell you, don't change those, right? Or don't, be really careful if you're going to be changing those. So I know that this board will certainly be, looking for the explanation of what those items are in the house. And so my list includes all of the windows in the house, the original doors, including there's some, kind of almost all glass doors, and then the more service doors on the kitchen side that have 4 panes and then wood panels below. The edges of the rolled roof, which actually come over the gutters, it's a pretty unique detail. And then the entry portico with its kind of classically inspired pilasters and columns. And then at the interior, the stair itself, which is a great example of the colonial revival, with its balustrade that sort of, makes a little turn at the bottom. The flooring almost throughout the house, so the main flooring being oak, and then in the bathrooms, original hexagonal tile. The living room fireplace, and all of the trim throughout the house, which I understand is made of walnut, and the built-in glass-fronted cabinets and shelves in the dining room, sunroom, and Dr. McLean's study. So maybe I'll leave it there for now, and if anyone has questions or comments, yeah, I would love to hear them.
Oh, what do we know about the archaeology at the site, and what do we not know but know we eventually might want to know?
Yeah, good question. We know that the property was first surveyed in 1970. They did it again in the I think the late 80s, and then a little bit more recently with the construction of the well, no, that would have been part of the bridge project. So I am not sure if there's been a recent survey, after the 80s on the property, but there was definitely quite a bit of discussion in those surveys about the prehistory. In other words, there was an Indian village called Klawewala, and that was the Clackamas tribe, one of the Clackamas tribes. There's so much information about that I'm not sure how much to put in this nomination because we're not going down that path right now. Lynn, are you going to who?
Oh, yeah.
Had
Danny,
their hand
go
up
ahead,
first?
ask
Yeah.
your question. Danny.
Yeah, so on the significant features, how much does SHPO and everyone, I'm not sure if all of the features you mentioned are original, because I know there's been some repairs and replacements over the years. How much of that matters? Does it have to be original, or do they care? Do they even ask?
It doesn't have to be original, no, but it does have to be very similar to what it replaced. And so, yes, your input is super helpful. And if you know something that I missed about one of those features or several of them, that can be something that I just, I'll let SHPO know. Oh, well, there's this that I missed, and we can add it to the nomination and then decide if it's still a character defining feature. So thank you.
Yeah, I just know there's been I know there was like a tree that fell down a number of years ago, and I know it damaged the roof, and I'm sure that portion had to have been replaced,
Oh,
but it was replaced in the same way. So it looks the same as it did. It just, I didn't know if it has to be the same piece of wood or the same piece of glass, or how picky they get. But there's people we can certainly ask. I know there's people who are experts on it. That I was going to make my other recommendation is that I think we should send the whole application to a couple of particular board members from the Historical Society, who, including Mike Waters, who I know you use him as a resource, but it'd be great for him to at least do a once over and say, looks good, and then he'll probably write a letter for us too. So
James,
love that.
question?
Yeah, also a couple things. The site of the location of his house when he had it built, I read somewhere that he wanted the house situated so he could see his offices in Oregon City. I don't know if you covered that or not. Because the original offices for his clinic are where the Oregon City Hall is now, right at the top of Singer Hill. That's where his office was. Also, where the house is built is the original town site of Linn City that was wiped out in 1859. So, as far as historical things on that site, there might be something other than the McLean House there.
Thank you. I actually went up to the, what's now the Oregon City Hall, and I was able to see the house looking down from the bluff. So thank you. That is a good detail.
John Steele. Go ahead, John.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to add, the PACC building is still extant over in Gladstone. And I am living in the house of one of those other doctors, Dr. Steele, who's my father.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
I remember a lot of discussions back in the early 50s about, well, hearing about discussions. I wasn't there at the discussion, but about creating the PACC. And he was also the first director of Willamette Falls Hospital.
It sounds like we need to interview John
That's
Steele.
amazing. Can I talk to you offline?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Do we need to check with tribes about the property and the designation and things like that, since there is prehistoric archaeological things evident there?
well, we're not using that for part of the nomination, so it, I mean, shouldn't be part. It's not part of the nomination.
That was one of our discussion points when we decided whether or not to pursue the archaeological criteria, was that the city would need to actually reach out and create a discussion of partnership with the tribes. That would probably be the best avenue to pursue an archaeological significance under the archaeological criteria. And that's something that I think there are some council members who are interested in.
But,
I'm from Virginia, so like 30 years ago, it was okay to visit or talk about Monticello or plantations down south and ignore, slave history. And now
Yeah.
the archaeological digs are, bringing up the slave quarters, and they're part of the tours. And it's just sort of like, well, history is about a whole picture, and your point about, well, they rejected it because part of the history, it sounds like, was maybe being ignored, and I can see how that might become a problem.
I don't think the intent is to ignore it. It is to kind of put into another effort that would actually do it more justice than we can do in
Correct.
this nomination, because we don't have an archaeologist.
Yeah.
And we don't have the resources. I mean, because we weren't, the scope wasn't included to do a huge archaeological thing. So that's where we're just kind of like, let's, and Kristen, am I correct in saying that we could actually amend or get a second
correct.
nomination under the archaeological criteria, or maybe like a site nomination, or how would that work?
Yeah, that's right. You can amend a nomination to add another area of significance. And that can be, that can be as sort of minimal as doing, really just I don't know how many page, write up about just that. Or it could be a larger effort if if you encounter something that spans more than one side, or you know what I'm saying, like it could be a different effort that wouldn't be piggybacked on this nomination if you found that the boundaries needed to be significantly different. And so you could pursue that in sort of a local listing, or doing something different, in other words. So there's several ways of going about it.
And I think what we were discussing, that if we did get it cited with archaeological criteria, that we want to do that in partnership with the tribe and not without them.
And it is a big undertaking.
Yeah.
It's all underground.
And we could probably get a grant, and that's another thing. So.
And from what I understand, there may be some state pushback. There may be some conflict, because if we do find significant archaeological finds under there, it might hinder their construction right now on I-205 and could put a full stop to everything that they're doing on 205 because of state law. And I've heard some rumors that that's kind of why the state doesn't want to have archaeological designation in that area, because the state doesn't want to have to be stopped in doing what they want to do to 205. And I think that also went back into the 80s when they were building 205 originally too.
Well, they also had to address that through the Section 106 process, which occurred as part of this. And so I think, and maybe Kristen could talk more about it, but if a site's eligible for listing, oftentimes has similar protections as if it was listed already. So I'm not an expert in that field, but I think to a certain degree, ODOT already has to work around some of the resources, but the nuances are I'm maybe lost on me a little bit. So on that. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And you're absolutely right that if the property has already been designated eligible for the National Register, the state has to treat it as if it is on the National Register. And so the Section 106 write-up on the McLean House did include a little bit of discussion about the archaeological significance. But it didn't say that it was archaeologically significant. It just talked about it a little bit. So that there's a little nuance there, and maybe a little wiggle room for the state, because I think your point is also well taken, Danny. I think there's probably something there.
Just as a quick question, so I know in addition to the indigenous village there, there was a Hugh homestead as well. And so how much in terms of the archaeological record, how much is left of the homestead, if anything, or is it just more sort of known based on deeds and journals and other reference points,
Yeah, that's something I was unable to really pin down. The one source that talked about the cabin being on the McLean property had it located at a lilac tree in the turnaround. And I don't know where exactly the turnaround was when they were, when that description came forward, and there's no lilac tree that I could see. I mean, I know what a lilac is. I'm no biologist, but I don't know exactly where that site, was on the McLean property. And so I do think it's something that an archaeological survey would need to come in and really look for.
Any reason to believe that it's on the site of the McLean House right now?
Well, that is possible, although the Friends of the McLean House had there was a woman who had talked to Edward N. McLean, in other words, the son, and the family lore was that it was in the turnaround for the house. So once the McLean House was there, they thought that the original homestead site was near to it, but not under it. But that could be just their own family lore. I don't really have anything definitive.
Okay. Question, just in terms of the family, are there any living descendants that have any, knowledge about the property?
I don't know. I actually didn't do a definitive search for McLean relatives. That would be something that I could definitely try to do if if there are some holes in the nomination. That would probably help.
Is that a normal thing to do for a nomination, to try and talk to relative descendants of properties?
If there's not very much in the in the public record, like if there's not very much that you find in newspapers or magazines or in the local historic society, then yes, that would definitely be something that you might try to track down family members, because they might have old photos or memorabilia or grandma's diary. You never know.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments, or
Nope.
John Steele does? Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna, now this goes back a ways, but there were several McLean descendants that lived on Shannon Road, perhaps still do, in West Linn, up on top of the hill. So that would be potentially, if you need to start looking for descendants. I know there are some that are around.
I feel like there were some who were just visited the property just recently, because I remember them. I thought there was a reunion or a wedding or something. But again, some of the historical society people will know, and they may even have contact information
And I went
for them.
to school. I'm a contemporary. I went to school with an Ed McLean, who was a grandson. McLean's.
Tim, would it help with the nomination if we got them, the McLean family, to write a note, a letter, agreeing with it, or does that help at all with the nomination?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, all support helps. So I think if you think it's worthwhile, I'd be happy to reach out. I might need a little help with finding, those descendants and all of that, finding contacts, but I'm happy to do that.
It's a great document.
If we think it's needed, I mean, is there a point in the process where you might get an indication that it might be needed?
I mean, I honestly think it might be more helpful for me to have a conversation with John Steele, because he might know a little bit about you know, the sort of forming of the pack, or at least have some resources that I haven't come across yet. But potentially the McLean grandchildren could help.
It seems to me like it's a pretty good, it has a pretty strong case. I mean, I feel like we have a good case to be considered, but I don't know because I don't have that much experience, so.
Well,
Maybe a unique perspective on, like, if you added that, it would just make, even in, you know, how the property is used in the future, to have some sort of storytelling around the family, et cetera. So thinking not just for the application, but how you might utilize the property in the future. Just a thought.
Kristen, is PACC still around in any way, shape, or form? Or is there any part of them still around?
I think it's been subsumed into, shoot, is it Northwest something? I can't remember right now, but a bigger organization.
I believe you're right, yeah. And added into a bigger organization. And the building that was PACC now has other owners and uses, but I can point out to the building and say, that's it.
Yeah,
It's not what it's used for now.
yeah. Okay.
Oregon City has a fairly developed historic preservation program, and a lot of stories they tell. Do they talk at all about PACC already in terms of their own history, or that they could be a partner perhaps? I'm just thinking about different angles on this.
May I ask, what is PACC?
That's the organization that was the healthcare organization that Dr. McLean thinks.
So in answer to your question about Oregon City, I do want to draw your attention to the fact that in the comparative properties section at the end, I kind of make the case that when it became the city hall for Oregon City, it really lost its historic significance. It doesn't have integrity anymore. And I'm not sure how much Oregon City is going to appreciate that. I mean, it's my professional judgment and I stand by it, but just to, you know, just to be clear about that, they may not love hearing that the reuse of that building into the city hall meant that it really took a big hit.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It is.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that was truly a historic structure.
Okay. Yeah.
So can I make a recommendation that we send a copy of this to the West End Historical Society and some of the board members from the Friends of McLean House to see if they'll be willing to give us support, maybe a support letter?
Oh, yeah. I should say that
And
our
Clackamas
next-
County also, Clackamas County Historical Society.
Mike Waters.
Yeah,
As you
Mike
said.
Waters for sure.
Yeah. The report's already posted to the website as well, so we can forward it on.
Oh,
But it's out there.
okay.
It was being discussed tonight, so.
So yes, I did want to say that the next step for city staff is to reach out and ask for letters of support. And we did have Mike Waters down and some tribal ones potentially, and the historical societies.
Yeah. And you might want to there's some individual members from the Historical Society who have like for example, Roger, the president, he might want to write a separate letter because Roger lived there, for a number of years
Oh,
on the property.
okay.
And so Roger has a connection to the early foundations of it, as well as Mike Waters. And then there's a bunch of board members who have connections to it too, in some way. I know founding the Clayton House. So we could probably get a whole bunch of letters. It'd be nice to get a big stack from different people.
Great.
And I don't know if the would this fall within, there's that Willamette Falls area. I can't remember the name of it, but they may also throw their support in there because it technically falls within the Willamette Falls regional area.
The Falls and Land Indians Heritage Coalition.
Thank you. That's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's Sandy Carter. Is that Sandy Carter? That she the head? I get that confused.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, John, as I understand, we're gonna have the HRB meet back and make a recommendation at some point.
Correct. Correct. In the future, yeah.
A recommendation to the city council, and then the city council would basically make the decision.
Yeah.
Do we need to make a vote then? Or we need to take a
Can't vote right now.
Yeah. Yeah. This will come back. So
Yeah.
I think.
We can't vote right now because this is just a work session, not a regular
so are
meeting.
we sending it to SHPO on March 1st anyway?
We are, yes. And so, I mean, I think to meet our grant timelines, we have to do that. But this is for preliminary, feedback as well. And so, but we have to move forward to keep to our grant timelines on this SHPO. But there will be future opportunities for us to sort of discuss this and then make a formal recommendation. So
So it's going to go to SHPO without council approval either? That seems somewhat out of order, doesn't it?
yeah, so yeah,
I know timeline, but I'm just.
it's our timeline. I think we can send it forward. So I think hold on one second here. So Kristen, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first revision opportunity that we're moving forward to, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So there will be comments from SHPO that I'll definitely have to pick up or address in the nomination. And at that same time, I can definitely make changes to it as suggested by any of you or, that feel appropriate. So there is definitely an opportunity to make changes before it actually goes to the SACP in June.
And the SACP, we can incorporate those letters of support and everything.
Yes, exactly. That's when we are hoping to have some support and some testimony.
Yeah, that in my brain, that's how we were going to sort of do that. So, but we just have to, in order to keep SHPO happy with our CLG grant funds, we have to keep this moving forward. So.
Okay, any other questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for such a great document.
Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
document.
really good work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to, making it better and hearing your comments. So any specific comments you have for me, even, right now, I can probably incorporate a few things, even before it goes to SHPO. So just let me know, and Lynn, we can be in conversation about getting some contacts, and one or two of you might hear from me.
Right. So I don't know if there are any specific comments that came out of this meeting, but if you do have any, why don't you email them to me and we can forward them to Kristen. But I think it looks like it's a pretty great document.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I do think that it would be interesting to hear if John Steele has any insights on the pack.
For sure. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Shall I sign off then?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Good night.
So the next item is items of interest from board members. Items of interest from staff.
Yeah, just a few announcements. We received a new historic design review application. It will be class 1, so it will not appear before the historic review board, but some of you will get notices about this, and it's HDR-24-01. The owner of 1822 Fifth Avenue is looking to replace their front door. It's an original door. It's in pretty rough shape, and he intends to have a custom door made to match existing. He wants to reuse the glass in the current door. It's just he's had a few people look at it and doesn't believe it's salvageable after a century of use. So looking to sort of have that replaced. So notices will likely go out early next week about that. And so they'll be open for comment period on that. Other news, the HRB will recall the design exception hearing in November, where the design exception was denied for the 3rd story for the Icon building. So that goes to Planning Commission tomorrow, and a number of revisions have happened to the application since the HRB saw it. And so after the decision to deny the design exception aspect of the project, the applicant withdrew the request for the design exception and revised the plan of the building to remove the storage area off the roof. And so now the current application just has the rooftop deck with a stairwell access and an elevator access for the rooftop deck, and an HVAC enclosure. And so they've removed the storage area from that, and otherwise it's sort of carrying forward to the Planning Commission. And so that's under consideration tomorrow. So
they don't have to take that back to us for approval again?
I mean, it's essentially reverting back to the design substantially that the HRB saw back in June of last year. And so, except for without the top story, but essentially it's substantially the same building. This, it's just, yeah, it's essentially the same building with the 3rd story removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems odd because so they took off the top paneling then too, or the top facade, or that's all still there?
Yeah, the parapet wall is still there. So it's just the 3rd story. It came back to the HRB for the design exception for the 3rd story, which they added after. So in June, the HRB saw the application and then approved it with direction to the city council. I'm sorry, the Planning Commission for further consideration of the height. And then over the summer, they added a request for a design exception to exceed the 2-story cap, which the HRB denied in November. And so they've withdrawn the design exception request and removed the occupiable space on the roof. And so now it's essentially a two-story building with the deck remaining and the stairwell, with a stairwell and elevator.
With the deck remaining, so it's still occupiable space. It still can be walked on.
Yeah, but there's no roof on there, essentially. It's a. So,
Sounds like they're trying to sneak through something to me, because
you know.
so just don't call it a space, but still build it.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially a story is defined as a section with a floor and a roof. There's no roof, so that was the idea. So,
Wow.
yeah.
We can see their submittal online, can't we?
Yes, everything's online. And so,
Yeah, but I've already been getting calls from people that are confused, neighbors who read it and they don't get it. They don't understand what's happened. They're confused.
it's a very complicated it's a complicated application. Staff recommended the applicant withdraw the application and resubmit, and they chose not to. So, so that was, staff made the request and that was just not followed. So, so the planning commission has a complicated record to consider tomorrow night. So, yeah.
We might see it again.
HRB
HRB might see it again.
might see it again. But yeah, so.
So, John, what is the etiquette of a HRB member being at that meeting?
You can attend, and so I can clarify for that, yeah, so.
And you can testify.
And you can testify, yeah, I'll have to clarify, I don't believe you can testify on behalf of the entire HRB.
Right. Yeah, but about myself as a neighbor.
Correct, yes, you can testify.
Because I got the little notice in the mail, so I didn't know. I figured I'm
Correct.
allowed to, but
Yeah, so so you can testify, the city, if there are questions, the city attorney can guide your testimony in terms of what's in and out of bounds. But yes, and so.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And is that 6 o'clock tomorrow? And is that going to be on is that going to be on WebEx thingy again?
Correct,
It's at 6:30.
yeah.
6:30?
Yeah, they start at 6:30.
Are they in chambers also, or are they only?
So Danny, the pre-meeting starts at 6 o'clock where they'll discuss process with the attorney, and then the actual meeting starts at 6:30.
Okay. Are they also in person, or are they only on WebEx?
Yes, in person in the city council chambers
Yeah.
and on WebEx.
Yeah, tomorrow will be hybrid. I know at least one member will be joining virtually. I think most of them will be in person based on past experience. But it's a hybrid meeting, so if you want to join remotely, you can join remotely. If you want to join in person, you can join in person. So.
Cross my fingers if internet will work. I don't know. I'll probably be there. I don't trust my internet connection.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And we're still online to do the meeting in, is it a week? What's the meeting that Kristen's going to run? Is that next week?
Oh, for Highway 43?
No, for the community historic property. Is that next week?
Chris was going to run?
No, the historic review board is running the workshop.
Yeah, the workshop, yeah.
Oh, that one,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. That's tomorrow, yeah, that's next.
Sorry, I was thinking different Chris. Sorry, I was thinking different, okay.
Kristen will be there
Kristen.
next Tuesday night here at City Hall in the council chambers to do another, to do the same workshop again. And we have five people signed up.
Yay.
So
Okay, good.
6 o'clock here at City Hall upstairs.
Only 5 people.
Well, that's the last I checked. And that's where there might have been some crossover with the library event that they had 2 weeks ago. They had a
And the
similar-
Historical Society's journal will go out on Wednesday inside the tidings with the big article and the big ad.
Good.
So that's a 3-page write-up all about the meeting. So hopefully it'll drum up some support too.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, and if anyone didn't know, that John and Lynn wrote a big 3-page article inside the tidings that'll go out on Wednesday. So there you go. Thank you for doing that too.
Hey, James, did you have something to pipe in with? I thought I saw you wanted to speak.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I was just gonna think that six was probably not a bad number for that thing next week. That's 6 more than we've had before, so,
Yeah.
but with the tag article, it might be some more, so that'd be good.
Okay. Okay, and then the third announcement is that the waterfront website should be up this week, and so or some substantial expansion of it. So I'll send it out to you. It's for the waterfront planning process, and so there's a survey on there, and then there's an opportunity to comment on the draft vision document, and so we can drop comments on there and comment on other people's comments, and so I will send an announcement out to the HRB when that's live, and so it's sort of the evolution of this vision plan that we've been working on for a number of years, and so I'll come at a future meeting of the HRB to sort of go into that project in greater detail, and then I'll probably also have Chris Meyer, my colleague here, also give a presentation about the Vision 43. It's a project about reexamining the zoning and sort of development goals a lot, and for the Highway 43 corridor, in terms of getting people better connected to the corridor, better services in terms of what people want to see, and sort of revisit the sort of development pattern along Highway 43 in terms of making it serve the needs of people in 2024 as opposed to 1984. So, Chair Manning?
Yeah, I just had a question. I was looking the other night. Is there a spot where we can see what's gonna happen underneath the bridge when it's all finished?
Oh, you mean the 205 bridge?
Yeah,
That's a good question. I am not certain. I will find out. So it's
for connection of, from Arch Bridge down the River Road,
yeah,
that's an important part of,
It is.
Connecting Willamette to Portland eventually,
Yeah.
right? So,
it is. I believe they're going from memory. Don't hold me to this. I think there's a requirement for the trail connection to be reconstructed under there to still continue through, but I will follow up with you on that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. So I believe that was a condition of a permit the city had to issue for that.
Okay.
So
That's what I thought also, but I couldn't find anything online on the state project or the, the vendor site or anything,
Yeah.
so.
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, and with that project is being scaled back a little bit as well. So it's hard to, you just have to re-verify some of the assumptions. I know with tolling, in questions of the funding stream for the 205 improvements is being, the
Hijack.
hijack. Yeah, they're having to rejigger their timelines, for some of the expansions. So anyways, and that's all I have at this point. So I just wanted to give those announcements. And if anyone has questions about tomorrow night, feel free to email or call me, and then we can go through that. But there's a 470-page staff report on the website. So yeah, so, and the project has been revised 3 times, and so each iteration is in there as an attachment. So it could be a long hearing, maybe a continuance, but the planning commissioners are going to earn their keep tomorrow. So,
John, so I have one question for you. Who is our liaison now for
those,
council?
those are being reassigned. I'm not, that hasn't been communicated to me, but I will find out. So,
I was just curious.
Made yet.
yeah, I think it was, I was at council last week and they were talking about the reassignments, but I think the Farley issue has been occupying council's agenda times recently. So, yeah, so I will let you know as soon as I know. So
Have we ever thought about maybe giving our police services to Blackstone County versus West Linn?
I'm not qualified to answer that. Yeah.
It would have been nice to have someone on council hearing this presentation. That's all I was thinking. It would have been,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I know we're in limbo, so.
Yeah,
Will Kristen do the same presentation for council too, or later?
I think it'll be discussed with council later. And
Okay.
so, in terms of that, yeah, I know Megan wanted to be here as well and talk about that more, but she had a conflict to come up and couldn't make it. So, but she wanted to be here as the parks director since her department is in charge of the building in terms of keeping it. And so I think she just couldn't make it tonight. So
She watched the video.
she can, yes.